I wouldn't have become who I am right now without you guys. There are
Mhm.
parts of me that would not have been shown and therefore not have been known and therefore not have been held and therefore not have been pulled forward without you guys.
Welcome to Permission Slips, a space for you to practice paying attention to your life with self-compassion and kindness so you can discover the wholeness, purpose, and joy you are made for. I'm Jillian DeBritz, a life and leadership coach and a recovering perfectionist, learning alongside you how to give myself permission to be human. And today, I am so excited to welcome back my very first guests on the podcast, which launched almost exactly 1 year ago. I cannot even believe it. Michélle and Jenni, my dear friends, thank you for coming back for the second time.
I'm so glad we are all here and together this time. What a blast.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep. We want to be anywhere else.
Michélle, you were my first guest, and Jenni, you were my second. And it didn't even occur to me to be strategic enough to, have like a reunion episode or an anniversary episode. But what I really wanted to talk about was friendship and the beauty of what emerges when we have people who see us and know us and are unconditionally for us. And just to talk about our friendship that really in the past year has obviously deepened and developed, but is bringing about beauty and goodness and creativity and inspiration and hope in all of us and in our work in ways that we could not have imagined. So I want to talk about that. But first, a caveat. I'm a little nervous to talk about friendship because I feel so aware of how abundantly rich I am in friendship. And I worry that anyone listening might start to feel like, oh, it must be nice to be her. Or, yeah, if you have all these amazing people that happen to be in your life, it'd be easy to have deep community. And that is true. It really is true. And also, there are some things that we've experienced together and that I'm noticing consistently in other relationships that I hope will be helpful for people who are listening to start to imagine where they might be able to cultivate deeper friendships and this type of community for themselves. So that's my hope. That being said, this is not, I'm not an expert. We are not experts on any level about friendship, but we are actively practicing learning how to love one another in a way that releases each one of us to be our full, free, wholehearted, beautiful selves in the world. But before I let either of you start talking about how we met and what our friendship has looked like and meant to you, I want to make sure people know who you are and what you're doing these days with your time and energy and in your creative work. So first, Michélle. Michélle Konson is a speaker, a writer, and a story work guide who helps people explore how their past shapes the way they show up in their lives and relationships. She is the creator of the Untangling Your Story journal, and her work is deeply shaped by the belief that creativity and healing are rarely formed alone. Vulnerable and intentional friendships have been central to her own creative journey and to the way she lives a more fully connected life. And Jenni LaBrie is a visual synthesist, a writer, and speaker, helping messages stick with powerful words, visuals, and voice. She has a gift for distilling thoughts to their purest essence and then making them visible and shareable. She's a former teacher turned creative entrepreneur. Jenni lives in the Chicago suburbs with her husband and 3 kids, where soft pants reign supreme and washing her hair once a week feels like a win. So with that, I want to take us back to the beginning. And as people who have listened to the first episode, Michélle was my very first guest. Jenni was my second. Michélle, will you take us back to how the 3 of us became friends in the first place?
Yeah. So, Jillian, you and I became friends when you drove your car past me trying to find the registration spot for the writers' conference that we were going to. And you couldn't find it, like I couldn't find it 30 minutes before. And you were like, I cannot find it. Please help me. And I was like, I know it's so hard. They haven't made it clear. You go right down this road and park right here. And then you walk right up to the building. And I remember you saying, because I knew no one there either, I was, having imposter syndrome and wondering, like, what am I doing here? How am I going to meet people? I shouldn't be here. And I remember you saying, the reason you knew my name is because I already had my name tag on because I had just registered. You said, Michélle, I want to get to know you. And like that line has stuck with me. And just as I heard you saying now that you don't want people to hear that you have, these incredible friendships. I really want to emphasize that friendship is intentional. It takes work. We have a few friendships in our lives that just happen, and those are awesome. But I would say there's a few and far between. And I would say it takes intentionality. And you are one of the most intentional people I know. And so I just want to highlight that it takes work and it takes a decision on each person's part to make this work and to make it work well.
Yeah.
So that was me meeting you. And then Jenni, after you were highlighted in one of the sessions, your beautiful website went up on the screen. And I'm like, what it must be like to be Jenni. What a beautiful website.
We admired her from
exactly
a
what
distance.
I was thinking.
Yeah, I didn't even know I needed a website up until that moment.
Okay, but let's be honest though, because I am guessing that your internal narrative was similar to mine, which is like, man, she's so beautiful. She knows what she's doing. She has her act together.
Totally. Yep. That was totally my first impression of you, Jenni. And and I think we met after that session. I think we had a meal together, and somehow there was just something that clicked with the three of us. And something that's hard to put words to. We were all first timers. We were all new to this writing, creating thing that we feel like we've been called to. And I think we felt a pull to one another because of that. But I think there was more. I really feel like there was a calling on us and on this, friendship, this threesome that we have going. And so I remember even Gospel Spice, Stephanie Roselle, she was sitting with us at the table when we were kind of like, well, what does this look like? We're leaving. And where do we take this? We each live across the US, one on the West Coast, one on the East, and one in the middle. Like, how do we do this? And Stephanie said, I can tell there's something special here. I can't put words to it. I don't know what it is, but I can tell there's something special here. So that would be my not so brief summary on how we all met.
Yeah. Well, and she did. She looked at all three of us and she said, fight to continue growing this connection. You are in one another's lives for a reason. Like she could see, like you said. And to your point, Michélle, about the intentionality that friendship takes, I'm so glad you said that because I wouldn't have just said that to some rando, that I was asked, the fact that I asked you directions. Yes, you seem like a relatively safe, kind person. And I knew that you were at the conference because you had a name tag and you were rolling your suitcase. But when I pulled up to you, you were fully present with me. Like you allowed yourself to be interrupted and you responded with such kindness and vulnerability. And again, we've said this before, we've talked about it in the past, but you used the version of me too. Like you said, man, I struggled with that too. You started with, man, that was hard for me too. You're not alone. And that sense of allowing your vulnerability in such a small, like relatively harmless, risk to share that. But in such a small way, you allowed me to feel more human and to feel more normal and to not feel like my tendency would be to feel shame and like, I'm so stupid. I can't figure this out. Like that would be the internal beating myself up voice. But you were kind. And so because of your kindness, like I was willing to take the risk to say, hey, let's get to know each other. Let's connect. Yeah. And then Jenni, I'm just thinking about like, how did we overcome our intimidation with her? She is so professional, so polished, so beautiful.
And the accent helps too. I mean, she's
Michélle.
The beautiful accent.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but truly, like I'm thinking about, okay, the three of us showed up at this conference together. And again, I don't want to beat it into the ground, but there is something I think for people who want to know, how do I meet people? How do I find my people? I have people ask me that all the time. Like, how do you find the kind of community that you have? And so there's part of me that's like, I don't know. Let's think about it. How did we find each other? Because we all showed up alone, which was brave in and of itself, to this conference where we wanted to learn and grow in our writing journeys. I don't know, Jenni, would you add anything to this? Like, how did we connect?
So it's interesting, Michélle, that you bring up the part about the website. I totally forgot about that, but now it's like bringing me back to the cringe moment of like, there was something in that session where the presenter was like, does anyone want to put their website up for an example so I can kind of give feedback for others to see? And literally, this is so out of character for me. I don't even remember It was like an out-of-body experience where my hand went up in the air. I literally, anyone that knows me in my normal life knows that I would never raise my hand for anything like that. So
And knowing you
again, it
now,
was,
I am surprised that you did that.
yeah,
Right.
like I don't even know. And so it's funny that you bring that up, because by doing that, I think it lowered some kind of guard that I'd usually have up. And and so then people kind of some people were willing to talk to me, or I don't know, but it actually was directly after that session, we went to lunch, and we shared this in the other one, so we don't have to belabor it, but I remember literally with a cafeteria tray and some salad and cottage cheese, for all I know, that I ran into Jillian and I looked at her and I was like, I know you, right? And I'm not usually that forward. I usually am like, I keep to myself, but there's something, I know you. And she's like, I don't think so. I'm like, where are you from? Like, so we were trying to point, I'm from here. I'm from the Seattle area. We're in Washington State. And literally we did not know each other, but for whatever reason, I literally in my heart was like, I know you. Like, how do I know you? So I just think that that's kind of special. And then the last thing that I would add, even just to any of this, is that Jillian, you said, hey, let's go have lunch. I know, Michélle, you mentioned let's have lunch, but Jillian, you were the glue that was like, even beyond that lunch. And there were other meals later where you said, hey, I met this person, Michélle. Can I invite her to eat with us? I was like, for sure, the more the merrier, right? But like, there was just something there where you were like, let's sit down, let's have another meal together. Those are things that I don't do naturally and need people in my life to help me find that. And so forever grateful in that.
I think also, the thing that we've all highlighted is that you have to put yourself out there, right? And that goes with intentionality, but that's also vulnerable, right? It's like, you've got to go find your people. Again, friendships really just drop in your lap. Like you have to do hard things. You have to, sign up for conferences alone where, you feel insecure in your craft. You feel insecure in your like permission to be there or in your qualification to be there, but you're going to go anyway. And I had a few people encourage me to go and, make me promise that I wouldn't sit alone at a table, because those, like you, Jenni, are my natural tendencies. But, it's putting yourself out there. It's being vulnerable. It's doing what's not really comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think we really have to do that. And we have to keep doing it, because it doesn't always pan out. You don't just go somewhere and do something vulnerable and meet someone right away. And then you're like best friends for life, right? Like you have to do it over and over and over again until you find your people. And that's not the answer I wanted to hear. I don't want to hear those answers, but
Yeah. Well, and it is so risky and requires so much effort. And I think that's something that I don't want to admit either. Like, I don't want that to be true. Jenni, you were so brave to come up to me in the first place, because I remember standing in the cafeteria. And I mean, we were at a conference literally at a college. And so it felt a little bit like going back in time, like, oh, and I'm in my college days or in my high school days of like being alone in the cafeteria. It was a total flashback. So we're all feeling vulnerable and scanning, and we're in this space where everyone, I don't know that a lot of us talked about it directly, but everyone's kind of looking for the connection that's going to be the networking connection that's going to make the difference in their career. And so there is this a little bit of, I don't know, how trustworthy are people or how authentic are they? And my guard was up. And so for you to come to me was such an authentic, like disarming, I think I know you. I think I know you. And there was just, again, a warmth and I was willing to take another risk and like take that next step to let's have lunch. And then you get to know each other a little bit more and you take another step and you take another step. And in that short time, the time we spent together, there was enough of a sense of chemistry and I don't know, shared values, I think something that all three of us had in common that was so refreshing was, can we just skip the small talk and go right to the deep stuff? Like, can we just go right to our heart? Michélle, I remember our first conversation. It was, exhausted and jet lagged, but like sobbing and with my vulnerability coming out. And I remember you, instead of like other people that were at the table with us in that first conversation, when I was sharing and feeling flustered and overwhelmed by my anxiety, they tried to give me advice and fix it and like talk me out of it. And I remember you looked at me and you were like, that makes so much sense. I so get that feeling. I get it. Yes, me too. It's that same idea of being willing to go to the vulnerable, deeper places. Yeah, it's something that I think that's interesting about our friendship too, that you mentioned it, Jenni, or maybe Michélle, that we're in 3 different time zones. that's challenging. So I remember like having this great connection. I felt so encouraged by both of you at this conference. And then Stephanie says, okay, no, there's something special here. And I remember thinking, well, we're kind of leaving. So it was a really great experience. And I'm not someone, I don't know if I've shared this with you both before, but I'm not someone who has a great track record of staying in touch. Maybe because when I was younger, I moved around a ton. And every time we moved, I just lost contact with friends. And so I just assumed that when something is over, it's done. And it was really great, really special in that moment. But as we leave, like that's going to be the end of the connection. So what do you think made that relationship continue from that moment of initial connection?
You. Do you even remember? Because
No.
Michélle, because I was feeling similarly, but I wouldn't have known how to put words around it. And you're like, "Hey, I know this might sound awkward, but," and you could totally say no. Like it's like it almost like transports you back to your childhood, like of when you felt rejected, and But you're like, can we exchange numbers? There's this app called Marco Polo, and can we start a group and just see where it goes? And I remember that question is actually so brave and also awkward at the same time. I don't think I would have asked it. And so I'm so, on this side of things, so grateful that you did.
There's this feeling of when we've all been married for quite a while. And so this is an experience that we haven't had for a long, long time.
Yeah.
When you like a guy and then you're going to you can't wait for them to connect with you, and you're going to see what's going to happen. And there was that real sense of expectation and excitement. And what is this thing? I don't know what this is, and I don't know what it can become. I'm really excited, and I want to carry on, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Right? I rarely have that nowadays at this stage in my life. Like that's not a common occurrence. But I remember just being so excited for the potential, and then the vehicle that put it all together was Jillian rounding us up and putting us on the Marco Polo.
Yep.
Man, I feel like we could do an ad for Marco Polo. And
totally. We should get paid for it.
Polo, yeah. Just, here we are. We're available on us. But, I mean, truly, like what has grown over an app, asynchronous over 3 time zones, it's unbelievable, really.
Well, and just to speak to that, for those who aren't familiar with Marco Polo, there may be people out there who have never heard of it. It is essentially like a video chat app where you can record yourself talking. It felt super awkward for me in the beginning to look at myself, but it actually became a really helpful way to practice as someone who struggles to take up space in relationships. I'm a really great listener, struggle in real life to share openly about myself unless people really draw me out. And that's something I've had to practice, and I'm getting better at it, but still feel super uncomfortable. So Marco Polo was a place where I could practice taking up as much space as I needed. And I think in the beginning, it was always like, sorry, I talked longer than 2 minutes. Sorry, it's so long. Sorry, so much apologizing.
And all of the virtual, like what you do in person with somebody of the, toe dipping, but
totally like figuring out the etiquette.
Yeah. Right. It's a total mess. Like, I'm sorry. Like
Right. And then you realize in our responses to one another, some version of like, oh, I'm so glad to see you're a mess too. Or no, it's awkward for me too. Or no, I'm so glad you talked so long. I wanted to hear every bit of that. Like the feedback we were able to give one another, I think built for me a sense of security and confidence, and almost like I could let my shoulders kind of relax a bit every time I showed up, because I would feel such anticipation of like, oh, Jenni sent a message, or Michélle sent a message. I want to hear what they have to say. And it was like, over time, your responses to my vulnerability and my ability to respond to your vulnerability that I think, I don't know, I'm just putting this out there. I want to see what you each think. But I think that's what built such a deep trust and a deep love for one another, even across the time zones. And then we can speak to the convenience factor of Marco Polo. That's another thing, but it still took some effort and intentionality and time to invest in both sharing and listening and responding. So yeah, I'm curious what each of you think about how our friendship grew, even across the miles.
Especially as adults with many responsibilities. It's so much different to make and build and cultivate friendship as an adult versus a child, right?
To your point, Jenni, that the rules are different, or maybe not even the rules, but the circumstances of our lives are different, where we don't have recess to go out and play with our friends on the schoolyard, where we can get to know each other in these natural places. We have to be really creative about how to connect with people when we have jobs and kids that need dinner and sports practices. And it's never convenient to have relationships. In general, marriages, parenting, like any relationship is inconvenient. They're inefficient. People are inefficient to know and be in relationship with. And also, we've, I think, been really strategic about finding creative ways to connect when we can in the margins of our days, using Marco Polo as an example.
Yeah, it just looks so different than any other friendship that I've had because of us not operating in the same geographic location or time zone. And so, but I've also learned to love it. And I've been thinking about this, like, we always talk about maximizing time, but time is finite and it's really hard. But what if we're maximizing the margin? And so when you think of like the margin doesn't change, but the way we use that we can get creative with it. And I think that's what we've been able to do in order to leverage what we do have and keep showing up. So Jillian, you said that like you have to show up. And one of the things that I feel like I have really had to get over is the part of me that has learned through many years of trying to be polished and professional and procured and prepared, and I had to be willing to be unfiltered. And so that has taken a lot of like self-talk, like not because I didn't feel like I could trust you guys, but there's a part of me that was like, when I'm unfiltered and when I'm raw and when I'm tired and when I'm the last thing because this is just me as, again, the introvert, the last thing that I want to do is actually reach out or record myself. And I've really had to challenge myself to keep showing up because I want to also be reciprocal. You kept showing up, Michélle. You kept showing up, Jillian. And I wanted to show up too, even if in the moment, and always on the back end of things, I felt like, oh yeah, like now I feel like I'm glad I actually recorded that, or I'm glad I processed it, or I'm glad that I'm sharing my life with them in this way. But for a long time, it took some cajoling on myself. There's a lot of inner talk of like, just press record, stop thinking about a script, just talk. And that was a huge learning curve for me.
I love what you said about the margins, Jenni, because a lot of what we share, I don't know that I'd be sharing with anyone else. And so all of that processing and, the growth and the vulnerability that's like happened between us, it would have had nowhere else to land. Like it would have had nowhere else to go but my own brain and my own heart just ruminating on it. And of course, like, adding it to old narratives in my life and, telling me like, oh, you've hit this roadblock and, oh yeah, there we go. It's happened again. You can't do this thing. So don't bother trying anymore. Whereas I feel like by putting that stuff out there in the margins, which is crazy, like this is all happening like in the margins, right? Like
in pickup lines.
Right.
In between grocery stops.
Yeah.
Yep.
I then get to share that stuff like, oh, this happened today. And I totally feel like this dream of mine is now dead. And I just felt like I needed to share that with you guys because I knew you'd understand. And then, one of you or both of you hop on and say, no, that dream is not dead. Like, we're not willing to let that die. We don't feel like that needs to die or that should die right now. Let's brainstorm. Or this is what I see. Have you thought about this? Have you looked at this? That's, I see something different, and so I literally, like, this is a line that's come out in my confessional community. One woman said it and I swear by it. She's like, I am completely unreliable to create by myself. And I have found that to be absolutely true. When I look at the three of us, and I'll speak for myself, when I look at what's happened in the last year and a half since we started our friendship, I would not have done a fraction of what I have without you guys. And not that it's about success or doing certain things or checking things off, a to-do list, but I wouldn't have become who I am right now without you guys. There are parts of me that would not have been shown and therefore not have been known and therefore not have been held and therefore not have been pulled forward without you guys. And I continue just to marvel at it because I'm like, there's part of it that's a mystery, right? I don't understand. Like usually the stuff just goes in the gutter to die. And here it's coming to the special place and it's actually like, being given fertile soil to grow. It's kind of been really crazy.
Well, and I love how you're tapping into this creative vein that is what brought us together in the first place. And just to kind of put a little more clarity around what it is that we started talking about, like we talked about how we met at a writing conference and we were all trying to figure out what the next step was in our writing journey. All three of us showed up with a book idea and the hope of landing an agent so that we could get published. Like that was our plan. That was what we saw for ourselves, the vision we had for our lives. And the next step that we imagined was to go to this conference. Not a one of us left with an agent nor a book deal. And now a year and a half later, that is still true. None of us has an agent or a book deal. And also, what we have now is a greater vision, bigger dreams for our lives, and the creativity and the goodness and beauty. To quote Dr. Kurt Thompson, the outpost of goodness and beauty that this has become is more beautiful than we could have imagined on our own. And I think that's what has been so beautiful for me is, okay, here's what brought us together was this creative work that we're all trying to do in the world and wrestling with imposter syndrome. I don't know who I am to be a writer. I don't know who I am to speak. I don't know who I am. Like I have this message burning in my heart. I don't know the next step. I don't know what to do. And to willingly bring that vulnerability to one another and then hear your words and your vision back for me, the things I can't see for myself. And I think that's what you were just sharing too, Michélle. Is like, well, what about this? What about this? Where I'm tempted to quit. And I remember at that same writing conference is when this dream was planted in my heart to do a podcast. And Michélle, at first you were like, let's do one together. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right. We're excited about it. And that just even having someone that was willing to do it with me gave me the courage to dream about what that could be like. And as we processed and talked and continued to think, the logistics of it became like, okay, well, let's just pause on the doing it together. And yet here we are doing it together in this moment. But that dream continued to grow and you continued to fan that into flame. And so like, even as I struggle often to believe that there could be still goodness in store, that I have anything to offer the world, you girls are the ones that will tell me different versions of, no, the world needs you. Michélle, you said something last time we were together. I can't believe that you haven't been snatched up yet. I can't believe that the publishing industry hasn't snatched you up. Like it's just a matter of time before they see what you have and they grab you up. And I remember thinking, no way, like what do I even have? But the fierceness of your belief for me and that continual belief for me that I have something good and beautiful to offer the world gives me the courage and motivation to keep going. Where, like you said, I'm unreliable to create on my own. I'm not brave enough. I don't see in myself what you see in me. And so that ability to dream for one another and imagine new possibilities for one another, it's like, it's a reflection of the God who made the universe in relationship, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, creative hub of all things, together dreaming up what was possible and then speaking it into life. And you both do that for me. Yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm curious, girls, if you can put words around what has emerged in your life over the last year and a half. What do you notice? Either like specific things that you've been able to do that you wouldn't have otherwise, or even like what you've noticed in yourself. Michélle, you said, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for our friendship. Like what are some specific things that you see coming out of friendship together?
Well, I can definitely speak to it's a wild ride when you embrace the creative side of you and not necessarily knowing what that actually means or where it's going to land you or what you're supposed to do. And especially in those early days of the imposter syndrome, you both have already mentioned, I don't think I ever felt like, I know this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be writing and here's what I have. But I was just trying to be obedient in the moment of what I had to go off of and figure it out. And what I can say now, probably where we are several months to years later, is I am nowhere near where I thought I would be. And that's equal parts terrifying and also really cool. And yeah, there's parts where last summer, you guys know this part, where like literally I was trying to discern whether or not, like, am I needing to shift directions and creatively. You sometimes have to do that, but it's really hard to know how and when and if it's right. And again, are you, do you have people in your corner praying for you and discerning for you? And I really needed you guys to help me determine, like, hey, it's okay to pause the write. Like, I spent so long writing, so long, where I invested in this part of my craft. And yet I was getting these like nudges and signs that, like, that's not dead, that's not done, but I need you to shift and I need you to start thinking more in the lane of speaking and actually something more with the the doodling that I do. And for someone who finds herself in a very professional role most of the time, like, do I have time to doodle? And is this really dumb? And I needed you guys to tell me, like, no, there's something there with the sketching and the drawing and the putting images and visuals around people's words. And what does it look to create in a way that shows the powerful visuals and voice that others have and that you have? I don't think I would have had the courage to jump out in faith alone. I was sensing it. I was sensing like those, like, yes, you can write. But right now, perhaps there's this little path that you might want to take. And I don't know if you guys remember, I do vividly last summer where I was like, SOS, I need to hear you guys say that this is okay and this is a direction to pursue, because I don't know where to put my time. I have, again, because I work full time, I have about 4 hours a week. I have 2 hours on one night, 2 hours another night where I can actually put into this. And other things in the margins, but like where I have concentrated, uninterrupted time that I've carved out with discipline to do. And with those 4 hours, how do I use those? I don't know how to use those. So I need that help. And, those that I find myself with in and out doing life without in the real world, I often feel like there's so much of me in the creative space that, like, even the people that are so near to me maybe don't know or understand. And so I needed this. I needed you guys to help me be those cheerleaders and those people in my life that can lift me up when I'm not quite sure,
Yeah. Well, and even just to continue with that dream shift for you of, okay, I thought that it was going to look like writing this book. And actually, what about these sketch notes, these doodles? What about this? And even just last week, Jenni, you and I met and I needed your help. I was like, Jenni, there's so many things I have going on right now in my coaching business and leadership and dreams for women and podcasting. And like, I just need help seeing how it all fits together. Will you listen to me? And will you try to sketch my dreams? Will you put words around the things that are in my heart that feel too big and too all over the place and too unclear inside of me? Will you just like listen to me and will you catch my dreams? And you gave me such a generous gift of time and attention and care to make space to listen and to literally capture on your tablet my dreams and to value what's inside of me by the attention and space and belief that you have in me. And so I'm just so grateful for you being willing to not only share your gift with me and to allow your gift to make me better and give me more clarity and more courage and more confidence to walk forward in my calling, but just the generosity of care and love that I felt through your time, that you would give me so much of your attention and your focused listening ear. I think that's the thing that comes up for me again and again and again is we just don't have a ton of spaces in our lives where people really see us, and we all have so much going on, right? And so it's hard for any of us to see people deeply, but the work that each of you continue to do to really see me and see my true heart and see in me what I cannot see in myself. I don't know if there's anything that makes me feel more loved than that time and attention and care. So yeah, I think about both of you have done that, Michélle, and just what that example and over and over and over again, as you've asked for my help, coaching you through different parts of your creative process. And as you pivoted from your writing project to really focusing on speaking and moving into creating a journal, which is so beautiful. And I want you to talk about it. But you asked for my help. You asked for my support. You asked for me to give you my training and skills of being able to pull out and ask questions and pull out of you what's important and gain that clarity through our coaching conversations. And I had something to give you that was a benefit, I hope. I think it's a benefit because you've told me it is. So just the beauty of like us each offering what we have in the creative space and how it's almost like each of us has a piece of the puzzle that is creating a vision for what is possible in the world, not just in each of our individual worlds, but what's possible for all of us together to offer that wouldn't exist if we didn't hold that space to dream for one another. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, totally. And I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done without both of you speaking truth and telling me things that I couldn't see myself. And, one of those was the journal that I I was still working on the book proposal last April, and then had this conference speaking opportunity and was told I could sell books. And I'm like, well, don't have the book yet. But the idea of a journal had been inside me for a while, Julian, maybe similar to your podcast idea, right? This sort of wild, crazy idea that just felt too out there. And I was like, but maybe I could pull together a journal. And I'm like, no, that sounds silly. And, I remember like mentioning it like, hey, I had this really crazy thought that I should maybe like put together a journal, fully expecting like I would from probably anywhere else and for myself that, no, that's silly. You're never going to be able to do that. Just put that aside, right? And instead, both of you were like, that sounds awesome. You should do it. And I'm like, no, don't tell me I should do it. This is like too scary and it's going to be a lot of work. And there's part of me that really wants to do this, but I'll take you like saying no. I'll take you putting on the yield sign and, but you didn't. You're like, yeah, go ahead. I think this is the right thing to do. And, launched into, only had a couple months to do it, which just seemed so wild and crazy. But you guys were there every step of the way, every step of like, I've had this setback and I don't think it's going to happen. You're like, no, let's brainstorm. I think we can make this work. Like, let's figure out a way. Like, I don't think this is a no. I think this is just, a pause and, be back on tomorrow. And I couldn't have done it without you. Like, I needed you guys to believe in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And I needed you guys to be my cheerleaders. I needed cheerleaders. And that sounds silly to say, but I think we were created that way. We weren't created to do any of this alone, right? We were created by a triune God. We were never created to do life alone. We do a lot alone because that's how society's conditioned us and our world programs us to be independent and strong and capable. And we do things alone because we can get them done and we can show how good we are. But I don't think that's the way we were made. We were made to need cheerleaders along the way. And I think even just acknowledging that, like, I need you guys. Like, what a vulnerable thing to have to say. Like, I need you. You now know that I need you. So if you're not going to be there for me, that means I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I need you guys. Like, that just feels vulnerable, but I feel like I can say it because I feel like you've shown that you can hold me and you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And so I can say it. And you guys know the journal story. I mean, up until the morning of delivery, which was, I was speaking at 1 p.m. through multiple like printing mishaps, should never have happened. I mean, you guys were texting songs and prayers and somehow it happened. I could not be relied on to create by myself, but together we did this thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just, I need you guys. There we go.
Yeah.
That's it.
And because of your vulnerability to say you need us, it gives me so much more courage and clarity to say, I need you. I need you too. And that's not codependence. That's health, truths. If any of us is going to create in the world, there's nothing more vulnerable. I remember Brene Brown saying that, like, there's nothing more vulnerable than to create something and share it with the world. And if we're going to do vulnerable work, if we're going to write, if we're going to speak, if we're going to podcast, if we're going to draw, if we're going to teach, if we're going to lead, if we're going to do anything that doesn't already exist in the world, that is vulnerability. And we need people with us in our corner, championing us, cheerleading us, collaborating with us, linking arms with us for the days that will come when we want to quit, where we don't believe in ourselves, where we feel like imposters. Let's be honest, the hours that will come, the minute, like, it's for me, multiple times a day, I need to be reminded, you're not alone. You're not alone. I'm with you. I believe in you. So thank you both for doing the same for me.
I just want to add, and maybe you were going to pivot in a different direction, but I want to just say, like, for anyone listening who thinks this is awesome, they have this, incredible, happy friendship and good for them. I want to just say, like, it's not always like pretty. I just feel like that needs to be said because I don't want anyone else to feel like they're disqualified from this. Like, we've had some odd moments. We've had some times where, we haven't, connected and we haven't seen eye to eye and we've hurt each other. And somehow we've still been able to, on those little tiles on our phone, continue to work through that because we're committed and we're intentional and we love each other and we need each other. And so I just wanted to make sure that was said because I don't want anyone to feel like, well, that's outside of my realm of reality.
Yeah. I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you said that, Michélle, because you're right. Anyone that expects friendship to be easy or perfect is going to be disappointed. And I think about the time I shared about in a previous podcast, actually, where I was feeling really jealous of Jenni and an opportunity that we were expecting her to get that I really wanted. And I didn't want to feel jealous of my friend. That's the last thing I wanted to feel. And yet that was the honest response to the opportunity that we both saw. Michélle, and it's like, Jenni has so many, it's easy to see the gifts that others bring to the world, right? It's harder to see it in ourselves, which again is another reason we need each other and we need cheerleaders. But there was an opportunity that we saw Jenni would be a perfect fit for, like that there would be an easy connection that she could make with someone that I really wanted to connect with. And I had that moment where I was like, I don't actually want to admit this. I don't want this to be true. But I also feel myself pulling back. I feel myself disengaging. I feel myself shutting down. And I don't want that to be how I show up in our friendship. And so I had the choice there. And I think we were in the middle of a Zoom call. So we were actually in real time, which we usually are on Marco Polo. And I could take a moment to kind of like get myself together before I show up. And I remember saying that, like, this feels really embarrassing. I don't want to admit this, but this is what's happening. And I don't want this to be true. And at the same time, I'm so excited for you, Jenni. I'm so excited. I want that for you. And this is here and this feels confusing. And that was really embarrassing. I didn't want to admit that, but I didn't want anything to come between us. Like our friendship, our connection was more important to me than preserving my dignity, I guess. And I'm curious for you, Jenni, I'm totally putting you on the spot here. What was it like for you to have someone show up with jealousy in our friendship?
Jillian. Let's see.
I didn't give you warning that I was going to ask you that. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. I'm so glad you did. Because I think it's how else do we learn how to do it well? Because jealousy is not something you can really control. How else do you know how to do it actually in a healthy way versus what I think our default is, which is usually unhealthy. And I just thought it was brave. And also, you know, we're not spring chickens. We've lived enough life now to have been on the receiving end of what it feels like to have someone maybe jealous about an opportunity or you or whatever it might be, and not actually be able to build that trust and actually build a divide. And I think there's something to say about, I know, and even referring back to what Michélle was talking about with like, yeah, we've hurt each other and we've had to repair. Even in terms of jealousy, maybe there wasn't real hurt there yet, but it could have actually gone there had we not addressed what we're actually feeling in real time in an honest and authentic way. And so on the receiving end of it, you know, I think I'm still working that out in how to do that gracefully and how to do that with care and tenderness. And because when you think about how that other person might feel, in this case, you, Jillian, that's almost like, oh, I don't want that to be like, I don't want you to feel that. And I can't change how you feel, but I can hold you in that and show that there's still realness here and there's still authenticity here and there's still vulnerability here. And also because you noticed and named all of your feelings, we actually knew what we were working with. Otherwise, and I'm sure anybody even out there listening can think of a time when there was what you thought was a friendship, but yet there wasn't the real raw. I think that's the word of the night, by the way, raw. That if you don't actually go there, it's going to fester or not actually be what the depth of what you really deserve and the fullness and the abundance of friendship that you really, really want. Yeah. And so I think it was just a lesson in modeling for me, like, oh, I can do that too. I think it's sometimes hard to do that with when you don't maybe have the established safety nets that perhaps we've worked really hard to have.
Totally.
But there's a lot out of in this instance, there's a lot out of my like locus of control other than to just practice responding gracefully. And that's all I've got. I don't know. Does that work?
Well,
I mean,
I love that. And I love that because there's three of us, the weight isn't on your shoulders or my shoulders to respond right, whatever it means to respond rightly. Because I remember then Michélle being able to come in and say, well, of course you feel that. Like there's something that you want that you don't get, and someone you love is getting that. Like jealousy makes sense, and without shaming or condemning the experience that I was shaming and condemning myself for, and to be able to name, like, of course that makes sense that you want something, and you also want it for your friend. It's not like you want to take it away from her and give it to yourself. It's just a signal of what you actually long for. So of course we all wrestle with that. And I remember saying that to you, Michélle, like, is there something wrong with me? And we were in person, I think maybe waiting for the three of us were going to be together and we were waiting for Jenni's flight. And I said, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Is it a sign of like ugliness inside that I said that I was jealous or that I named that? And you're like, no, we all feel that. You just said it. You just said the thing. And so there is something about knowing that we can show up fully as ourselves that brings such a freedom to know that like everything is workoutable. Like there's nothing that's going to keep us apart. And yeah, even now I'm thinking of other examples of like where we all three submitted a writing submission to the same publication and the two of you were both accepted and I wasn't. And that was painful. And also I wanted that for you, right? It's like the both and so I think there is something about learning to live authentically in this tension of, man, we love each other fiercely. And man, that can be messy, but we're committed to be together no matter what at the end of the day.
And I also think, Jillian, something that we've spoken about before is the tension of I want something, but I also want it for my friend that I love, right? And how we've spoken about, I'll speak for myself, how I am learning that I think I was far more looking out for me in the past. I think I was, and you helped me name this too, by saying, I was like, well, that was really selfish of me. And you were like, well, but of course you were like that, right? Because that's how we grow up with our trauma. And we have to learn to fight for ourselves and we have to learn to survive and we have to learn to grab whatever we can to make it for ourselves, right? So, you validated that in me and named it and took away the shame in saying that. But I am learning that by you both being lifted up, like that brings me joy. And it makes me want to give others opportunities to be lifted up too, because I know what it feels like to be lifted up by both of you. And I know what it means and feels like when other people are generous and kind to me. And I'm like, I want to do more of that because I know what that feels like. And so I'm far more like, just give me whatever I can take. I'm far more like that person that went to that writers conference looking for that connection because I had to speak to the right agent to get my book published, right? Like it's far less that now for me than it is, I know someone you should speak to. Let me connect you to my friend Jillian. Let me connect to my friend Jenni because I want what's really good for them because I know what it feels like to be lifted up. And I know the joy that comes from lifting other people up. And so I feel like that part of me has grown so much in seeing both of you. I feel like it's a roller coaster, right? We like, sometimes one of us is on a high and the other ones are on the low and vice versa. And sometimes we're on the same high. And, it's really been so beautiful to be able to watch, feel what that all feels like and to know what I want more of. Even though it's hard, I'm like, no, that's good. And I want more of that. It's just literally started changing who I am and what I do and made me just bigger hearted, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that story, like I want to say at this point, having had permission and space to name that feeling that felt unnameable, and to be loved and accepted. And Jenni, for you not to shut down or push me away or stop sharing things with me because you're worried, oh, Jillian can't handle it. She's going to get jealous again. Like, no, you continue to show up honestly and let me practice celebrating you in a way that now further in, I can genuinely say it gives me joy, deep, deep, deep joy to celebrate the doors that are opening for you. And I actually fully trust and believe that I don't have to celebrate you to get something out of it. But I believe your heart toward me is such that if you have an opportunity to bring me along, you will. And also, if you don't have an opportunity to open a door for me or bring me along, you are going to help me see the doors that I can't see for myself that are even better. And so I don't have to worry. I don't have to self-protect. I don't have to, get focused in on what I think the best opportunity might be for myself because I have two friends who are looking out for me and their eyes are skimming the horizon with me in mind. And they're thinking about how they can elevate me and lift me up and propel me forward as I try to do the same for them. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to be in friendship with you both.
And I want to point out, Jillian, what you said about the practicing of it. And I think for anyone that's listening here that might feel that what you describe as jealousy or those feelings that sometimes you're like, oh, is this a bad part of me? But you actually have to face it and you have to name it and you have to work through it and practice it because without it, you're just going to be stuck in this holding pattern. All of us are in one way or another. And it's when we finally face those things about ourselves that we're like if we protect ourselves from that, so you never feel jealous, or you protect yourself so you never feel angry about something, and you don't work through it, then you're always going to have that, you're going to suffer from it versus actually be free from it. And so I just think that freedom you're feeling is because you've been willing to do that work.
Thank you. Girls, you know that I just want to hang out with you all day and have this conversation late into the night.
Yep.
But because we're already over time, I would love to know if there's a quick permission slip that each of you would want to give to people who are listening as they think about friendships in their own lives.
I would say the permission slip I would give is that you are free to be vulnerable and intentional as you seek out friendship.
Jillian, I love this being your ending question. And I knew vulnerability would come up. And I knew we'd talk about it, but because I knew that that was going to be likely a permission slip, I wanted to think outside the box in terms of vulnerability, because when we define vulnerability, there's so many different ways to go about, does that mean that you're willing to cry in front of somebody? Does that mean you're willing to give them the truth in your heart? And all of those things are true. But one of the things that it is kind of like a subcategory of vulnerability is the permission to be awkward and cringe. Whether that's awkward and cringe while you're recording and unfiltered and blah, or whether that's awkward about seeing somebody across the cafeteria and being like, I know you, when you really don't, or being awkward when you're going to something alone, or you're cringe when you're feeling these feelings and you're saying them out loud. All of those little micro moments of the vulnerability, it isn't always, it often is very deep and big and scary and huge emotions. And also it can be literally awkward. And sometimes it's that awkward that is the gateway into the deeper vulnerability that maybe you're not yet ready to practice. So start with the cringe.
Start with the cringe. Let's just end on that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Mic drop moment. Mic drop moment.
Oh my gosh. Ladies, you are just a gift beyond words. Thank you for being my friends and for letting me be myself and helping me become myself in the world. Can't do it without you. Love
This
you.
has been a blast.
Ditto.
Thanks for having us. Love you too, friend.
Love you too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Permission Slips. I hope this conversation will help you to consider where in your life you might be able to take some brave, even awkward or cringy risks in order to cultivate deeper, more authentic friendships. If any of what you heard today resonated with you and you want to connect with Jenni or Michélle, you can find their websites in the show notes or go to jennilabrie.com or michellekonson.com. Each one of us also loves to encourage people in person. And so if you have an event or retreat or workshop and you're looking for a speaker, you can reach out to any of us through our websites to learn more about speaking opportunities. Jenni also has a freebie that you can find on our website to learn how to do sketchnoting yourself. And Michélle has created a great resource in her Untangling Your Story journal to help you dig into the threads of your story and how it's impacting you today. So you can grab that on her website too. Remember, your life matters, and so does having authentic, vulnerable friendships, more than you know.